Hi guys, I want to give a quick, excuse me, introduction on a couple pieces in our interactive literature discussion plans that I felt were kind of consistent growth areas for multiple people. I think you guys did a really fantastic job this week of sticking with that objective of looking at theme, but also picking strategies in the by, picking strategies that are really aligned with the text you chose. So I'm going to do an example this week on the book Sheila Wray the Brave. If you haven't read this book, I have a copy. You can pause your tape right now and take a quick look at it so that you know what's happening in this story. It's going to help you watch through this video. I put in here what the theme of this book already is that everybody gets scared sometimes. But what I want to do with this objective of being able to determine the theme through making inference about characters is I want to write some really consistent key points. The first thing, and I think there's been a little bit of discrepancy, and I want to first apologize for some lack of clarity around this. The first thing is looking at our what key points. We want to have some very clear definitions of what theme, inferring, and character are. If I was doing plot, like beginning, middle, and end, I would have definitions of those as well, or problem and solution, or all the types of literature words you're going to use. So the first thing I'm going to do is define what a theme is. A theme is the big idea from a text, or I'll put story, big idea from a story, or what the characters learned during the book. So again, I'm putting a general definition of what a theme is. The next are my how key points. Your how key points should be steps that tell you how you make an inference about a character. So here, which I think a couple of you had the same thing, it's inferring the character's thoughts, feelings, and actions, thinking about what those thoughts, feelings, and actions tell us about the character, and then describing the character using an adjective or a descriptive phrase, supporting it with evidence from the text. The final key point is your why key point. Here, we are looking at why this skill is important for your readers as a whole. So I know that thinking about characters is important because we use the characters in the books to connect our own lives to the stories by thinking about what happens to characters can better figure out the theme of a book and then tell others about how great our stories are. So again, this should be just a statement that talks about why this skill is important. I've already gone through some deep thoughts, put my assessment question, but haven't put my exemplar responses in. I want to jump down to how we would actually write these scaffolded questions. The one thing I think the other thing outside of making sure that we have these key points really solid is making sure that you're really building these how key points into your question. So I would start by having them identify character thoughts and feelings. So in the book Sheila Wray, there's a couple points I could stop. I could stop at, there's a couple pages where it talks about how Sheila Wray is not afraid of things. It gives some examples. So I might stop on a page and say, what do we know about how Sheila is feeling on this page? How does the author show you? So again, I want my readers to think about like what the author is specifically doing in the text to show the feelings. Back up to these how key points of think about the character's thoughts, feelings, and actions. So we know, again, my exemplar for this, I would probably, let's see here, I'm going to bold my questions, make this easier for you all to see. Change this font. So I would say, I would want to put my exemplar answer. Student response could be, here, this is going to bother me. Sorry, guys. My student response could be that Sheila is feeling brave. The author shows this by saying she isn't afraid of the principal, isn't afraid of the boy who stole her jump rope. Again, these are all examples from my book. So I'd want to pick a stopping point, ask a question on that page that again gets at some of my earlier key point of identify characters, thoughts, feelings, and actions. The next is think about what those thoughts, feelings, and actions tell us about the character. So I would keep asking this question a couple times, how she's feeling on this page and how do you know? But I would go to some different pages to ask that, because she's going to show that she's feeling brave on a couple different pages. So I'm going to get them to cite those pieces of evidence that show that. Like maybe she was riding her bike with no hands. So then I'm going to jump to the next how key point. I'm going to say, we thought about her thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now I want to think about what those thoughts, feelings, and actions tell us about Sheila. So I'm going to prompt them to do that. I'm going to say, here we go with this font, man. I'm going to say, Sheila Ray was doing lots of scary things. What kind of things did she do? Again, this is just getting them to retell, so they're going to tell me she stepped on the cracks. This is all in the book. She rode her bike with no hands, etc. And I would spell this all out in my plan, but for the sake of time for your own planning, I'm going to abbreviate this. I also want to think about going from those evidence in the text to then asking them, what does this tell me about Sheila Ray? Again, my exemplar response is that students are going to be able to say, Sheila Ray is a brave character because, and they're going to give me, again, I would spell this out, but for the sake of time, because she isn't afraid when she does scary things. So again, they've gotten to like, what do we know about Sheila Ray? And they're going to describe her. Now, in this text, I want them to get to the point that everyone gets scared sometimes. So I'm going to start pointing them to that turning page in the book. I want them to start doing some of this inferencing when Sheila actually gets afraid. So I'm going to say, what is happening here? How does Sheila Ray feel now? How do you know? They could say things like, she is scared because nothing looks familiar. Again, this comes directly from the text. Now, I want them to think about what has changed for Sheila. Again, if I'm going to really get them to be able to conclude that everyone gets scared sometimes, I want to use these character inferences to help them do that. So I've had them infer a lot about Sheila, about how Sheila's feeling, about all the different components of what Sheila's character truly is. So I'm going to get them to think about Sheila by saying, how did Sheila change in this story? And I'm going to want them to give me examples. We would talk about this still as a group. They might say that she was brave, and then she was scared when she was on her own. Again, really getting them to think about how that character's changed so they can get to that theme, but all the while using that inferencing skill about what's happening to a character and what that tells me about what they know. So I hope this kind of helps you think about what kind of questions you're going to ask. Because again, these questions are building all the way into my final assessment question of how did Sheila's feelings change and what was the theme of this book? That everyone gets scared sometimes. So I'm building into that using my other skills. I'm going to give you guys some work time. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything I've said as we go along. I'm hoping this is helpful as you jump into your next set of ILD lesson plans.